One day, since you and Glisten had been dating and you were a common volunteer at Garden View, you had just went right in after a kind of rough day at school. You immediately go up to Glisten and say, "Hey, Gliss, can we just hug for a bit? I don't really want to people right now." He smiles and hugs you immediately. Then he says, "Of course, darling. We can do whatever you want to do, okay? Plus, today's been slow. You can tell me all about it, okay?" You smile and say, "Okay, thank you, Glass." Then he gently kisses your forehead as he brings you to his room. After about 15 minutes, you're just cuddled up against him while he comforts you, and then you hear a couple of the school bullies coming closer. Then you say, "Les, they shouldn't be here, should they? This is an employee area." Then Glisten says, "The hallway area isn't really an employee, it's a whoever was told they could. I'm guessing the boss or one of the other employees told them they could come over here." And then one of the meaner bullies sees you and Glisten in the room and says, "Oh, hey, look, it's the pathetic idiot." And they're, "Wait a minute, why? When?" Then you say, "How about you idiots go away? Just trying to have some peace and quiet with my boyfriend." And then one of the other bullies says, "You're dating a mere tune." And you say, "Yeah, what about it?" Then one of the other bullies says, "Don't you think that's weird?" You calmly shake your head and just nuzzle more into Glisten. Glisten's blushing a little bit as he gently rubs your side, knowing that you're irritated and still a little upset. Then he calmly says, "Sweetie, hey, calm down. It's easy enough to handle idiots like that, okay?" And then you quietly say, "Okay, Gliss, I'm sorry." And he smiles and says, "Sweetie, you did nothing wrong. And stay here, I'll handle him." After a couple of hours, you two were just back to cuddling. The next day at school, you had just found out that your grade was going on another field trip. And lo and behold, you're going to Garden View. And to everyone's surprise, you hadn't quit working at Garden View. They would have thought that you had been forced into giving presentations or giving tours. You had been told to give a couple tours, but you just explained things to the tunes nearby instead of the people. You were just making sure that the people hadn't gotten hurt. And when all of you end up getting into Garden View, you just ignore everyone else and go up to Glisten. Then you say, "Hi, Gliss. The annoyances are here again." All of the staff and all of your classmates are confused because they know that you don't really voice your opinions much. So they were a little surprised when you flat out said it to Glisten. Then Glisten gently grabs your hand and hugs you. Then he says, "I know, hon. This time the boss gave Dandy a heads up, and Dandy told all of us." After about an hour, and people decided it was a wise idea to pick on Toodles. So you just go up to the group and say, "Hey, how about you leave her alone?" Then one of the kids says, "What will you do if we don't?" And you calmly say, "Oh, I may be quite passive and not willing to fight at school, but here I'm quite defensive. And trust me, you do not want to know what happens when you mess with my friends." And that mildly concerns the nearby students and teachers, but not the group that was messing with Toodles. And one of them decides it's a wise idea to smack her. Then you go up to the person, grab their hand, and leave quite the bruise on their face. Then you pick up Toodles, since she had lost a heart to that, and you just take her to one of the employee areas. And you give her a bandage, knowing that's the quickest way to heal a heart. Then you only say, "Sorry, Toodles. I know people can be annoying, but I didn't expect them to decide to be that stupid." And Toodles just hugs you and says, "Thanks, listener. And it's not your fault. You don't need to apologize." After a bit, you had decided to tell Roger about what had happened, since you know how protective Roger is of Toodles. And after an hour or so, your school leaves, but since it's the end of the school day, you stay. Since that day you hadn't brought in your stuff to school. So, while you're working your shift, everyone notices you seem a little more stressed. They don't know why, but then when they ask Dandy, Dandy says, "Well, you see, a listener has to give a presentation today. They really don't like speaking in front of people." And Glisten calmly says, "I'll help them with that. I know how they are. If they have the confidence, they have the voice." When it's time to give the presentation, you're up on the podium, just absolutely terrified, while looking at the note cards that say everything on the presentation. Then Dandy says from somewhere along the side, "Okay, everyone. Listener's not gonna be up there alone, so just ignore Glisten. He's not letting them be alone." Then Glisten goes up and just hugs you and quietly says, Look, listener, hun, I know you're against talking in front of people, so I'm sticking with you. And you smile and say, thanks, Gliss. After a while, and you're giving the presentation, and every time you get nervous or start to stutter, Glisten gently nuzzles you or gently kisses your cheek. By the end of the presentation, everyone knows quite a lot more, and you were surprised because you had expected that even with Glisten you would be panicking. Later that day, and you're just cuddling with Glisten, then you quietly say, hey Gliss, thanks. And he calmly says, there's no reason to thank me. I just didn't want my darling to be a stuttering mess during their big presentation. And you smile and nuzzle into him. Then you say, still, thanks. I love you, Nate. Then Gliss smiles and says, no problem, baby. Love you too. See you in the morning. And you both fall asleep while cuddling, as is almost every night.